Hello, welcome back to Learn Economia. Today in this session we are going to discuss the concept of multidimensional poverty index. Let's have a look into the very same here. The multidimensional poverty index is also known as MPI, which is the short form of the multidimensional poverty index. This is an international measure of poverty. So we would be considering poverty from multiple dimensions. The traditional idea of poverty will just look at the income aspect of a person and see whether his income is sufficiently enough to satisfy his basic needs. But multidimensional poverty is something that takes into consider the multiple aspects of poverty in a person's life, and it covers almost over 100 developing economies. And when it comes to this particular poverty index, it complements with the traditional poverty measurement, which looks at the main monetary aspect, or it just looks at the monetary aspect of capturing some deprivations in health, education, living standards, etc. Coming to the introduction of MPI. This MPI is being developed as well as launched by OPHI as well as the Human Development Report Office of UNDP. And since it is being developed by these two organizations, it looks into the multiple aspects of poverty and monitors deprivations by taking into consideration 10 important indicators that covers health, education and standard of living. So it just looks into both incidence of poverty as well as the intensity of poverty. It just see how poverty happens and it just see how much poverty is there. It looks into the starting as well as ending point of poverty, the scenario of poverty as well as the intensity of poverty. So this is how MPI works. It is having three important dimensions: health, education and standard of living. Health covers two aspects: nutrition and child mortality. Whereas when it comes to education, it covers four important elements that takes into consideration the years in schooling, school attendance, intensity of poverty and head count ratio. Then moving to the standard of living, it takes into consideration the different aspects of standard of living that involves cooking, fuel, sanitation, drinking water, electricity, housing as well as assets. Let's consider the weights allotted to each of these indicators. For nutrition, child mortality, years of schooling and school attendance, 1/6 is the weight allotted. And coming to the living standards indicators, cooking, fuel, sanitation, drinking water, electricity, housing and access, it's given weight as 1/18. So what we could see is that when we add all these, we will be getting a value equal to 1. Taking you to more details of multidimensional poverty index, it will be assessing poverty not at the composite level, but it just look on to the individual level. Definitely it will take into consideration the household level assessment, but we can have individual level assessment of poverty if we are going for MPI. You will definitely get the national level assessment, household level assessment, also group wise assessment, etc. But a very specific feature is that individual level assessment is also there as far as MPI is concerned. So if a person is deprived in a third or more than 10, what happens here is that we do have 10 indicators. Out of the 10, if a person is having deprivation in at least 3 or more, here we could see that that person is poor as per MPI. So as I was telling earlier, multidimensional poverty index will just give you some idea on the intensity of poverty as well, because when it is 3, the person is having deprivation in 3 indicators, that is something you can manage. But what happens if the person is having deprivation in more number of indicators? That show the much more intensity with respect to MPI. So MPI will help us to see which person is poor, and also it will show us how they are poor. Are they poor with respect to sanitation? Are they poor with respect to education? Are they poor with respect to something else? So this is what MPI tells us, and for the very same reason it tells us a very comprehensive picture of poverty of a region, poverty of a person, and so on. Also, you can use all the 10 indicators to go for comparisons. Each of these indicators could be used for comparing different persons or different households, different groups, different nations, etc. So you can identify the most vulnerable set of people, and this can be used for policy formulation. The policy makers can take this into consideration, and they can also target the resources while designing policies. While going rather than going for universal provision, it's always better to target. So this involves the judicious use of resources, and this involves utilization without wastage. Utilization with less wastage of resources. So as I was telling you, the poverty index with multiple dimensions or multidimensional poverty index is developed by OPHI with UNDP, and you can have UNDP's report specifying MPI. So this has been published annually by OPHI in the HDRs ever since 2010. So what we could understand from here is that, as I was telling you, a person is considered as poor or deprived if this person is identified as deprived in 3 or more indicators given by MPI. And what would happen if the person is deprived in more number of indicators? Mostly, if a person is deprived in 1/2 or more of the weighted indicators, then you call that person as extremely poor, or extremely multidimensional poverty is there with that particular person. So let's give some global scenario. 1.1 billion people out of 6.1 billion people are acutely multidimensionally poor. So that means it involves an 18% group are acutely multidimensionally poor. And here comes the role of Sub-Saharan Africa and South Asia, which takes into consideration 5 out of every 6 people in this nation are acting as poor. I mean, these people are multidimensionally poor. And if you take the case of children under 18, half of children are MPI poor. And also you can see that the exact proportion here is 27.7% of children as well as 13.4% of adults are identified as multidimensionally poor. Then, coming to the case of India, India still has 230 million people who are identified as MPI poor, and they have deprivations in several indicators, and 18.7% of people, they are identified as vulnerable. That means anytime they will fall to the clutches of poverty. And India is among the 25 countries who has successfully halved the global MPI. And this has happened within 15 years. So this is mainly due to the kind of effort that has been taken by the government of India. 415 million Indians escaped from poverty, and also you could see that the incidence of poverty has declined, again due to the policies that we were having. So this is something that you can say by comparing the period between 2005-06 and 2019-21 period. Also, India was making a progressive performance with respect to all the indicators, whether it is with respect to health, whether it is with respect to education. India was progressing. So you can see a fall in poverty, a decline in poverty in the nation. And also the poorest state in India could grow very fast. And we are just looking onto the absolute progress here. And multidimensionally poor and deprived of nutrition, this category had also came down. Also, we could see that child mortality in India fell down, and it fell down very drastically from 4.5% to 1.5%. So altogether, what we could see is that from the perspective of India, we should go for context-specific multidimensional poverty index, because it's very much important to reflect the national definition of poverty. The way in which we perceive poverty might not be the way in which some other nation perceive poverty. So the national definitions should be taken into consideration to have a comprehensive understanding of country-specific poverty. So you should have a context-specific indices so as to take into consideration the specific needs and wants of a nation. Specific needs. So that is all about the idea of multidimensional poverty. I hope you could understand. I request you to join our free Telegram community. You will be getting the link from the description box. Also, you can like, share and subscribe to this channel for more videos. You can also download the Learn Economy app, for which also I'll be providing the link in the description box. That's it. Thank you for watching.